Greetings from our channel again. She has 5 Golden Globes, 2 Academy Award nominations, and co-stars ranging from Alan Bates to Elvis Presley. In 1972, they referred to her as the female Elvis, but they were unsure if she would ever perform again. Doctors declared her career finished after she suffered a horrific 22-foot fall that broke her face. 10 weeks later, she stunned everyone by going back on stage and giving a performance so intense NBC's phone lines went down. This is the story of how a quiet Swedish girl turned into the lady who left America speechless. On April 28, 1941, Ann-Margret was born in the small Swedish community of Valsjöben. There were only 150 people there, mostly lumberjacks or farmers, and it was a peaceful place. Before returning to Sweden to wed her mother, Anna, her father had already spent some time in America. Her father intended to return to America after Ann-Margret was born, but World War II put their plans on hold. The family finally left Sweden permanently in 1946, when Ann-Margret was 5 years old. After landing in New York on November 29, 1946, they quickly moved to Fox Lake, Illinois, where several family members were already residing. Everything was unfamiliar to Ann-Margret. It was difficult for her to blend in because she didn't speak English. She was determined, nevertheless, even at that young age. She put a lot of effort into learning the language, and she soon began performing well academically. Ann-Margret adored dancing even as a little child. When she was 3 years old, she began dancing in Sweden. She started dancing as a means of self-expression and self-assurance after coming to America. Her parents helped her, despite their limited financial resources. To ensure Ann-Margret could pursue her love, her mother hand-sewed her dance clothes. Everyone saw her innate skill when she was a student at a nearby dancing school. She was able to learn dancing moves fast and execute them flawlessly. As she became older, she began making appearances on local TV shows to showcase her abilities and get experience in the entertainment industry. Ann-Margret enrolled at Northwestern University to study voice in 1959. She desired to continue studying and to get better at performing. However, a significant event occurred during her first year. Along with 3 male students, she joined a jazz group known as the Subtletones. Ann-Margret loved every second of their performances at neighborhood venues and school functions. A talent scout was impressed by her performance one evening. This marked a sea change. Ann-Margret made the decision to leave college and embark on a tour with the Subtletones after completing her freshman year. They ultimately made their way to Las Vegas after touring the Midwest and West Coast. For Ann-Margret, everything changed in Las Vegas. She attracted the attention of well-known Hollywood actor and producer George Burns while she was playing at the Dunes Hotel. He granted her the opportunity to perform for 10 nights at the Sahara Hotel because he thought she had something unique. She amazed the crowd, and the reviews were fantastic. A life-altering screen test in January 1961 marked the beginning of Ann-Margret's ascent to fame. She had arrived in the United States at the age of 6 from Sweden, and she was just 19. She was performing sparingly in nightclubs at the time, but this was her big break into Hollywood. She chose to sing and dance to the song, "Won't You Please Come Home," rather than putting on a somber show like most people do. As she danced, her red hair sprang out of her form-fitting black dress. The audience was astounded by her powerful voice and enthusiasm. She made such an impression on them in a matter of minutes that the studio head immediately offered her a 7-year contract. This was unusual for a newbie. Amazingly, this nearly didn't happen because she had to request a postponement of the test due to a case of the illness. Her life was radically altered by that stroke of luck. Ann-Margret made her television debut on The Jack Benny Show a few months later. She was seen by millions on October 29, 1961. During practice, Jack Benny loved her so much that he urged she sing more songs even though she was only meant to sing one. This notion didn't sit well with the producers, but Jack Benny argued with them and prevailed. Before continuing, Ann-Margret was extremely anxious and nearly fainted from terror. After receiving a motivational speech from Jack Benny, she was able to provide an outstanding performance. She received 437 fan notes the following day, which was amazing for someone so new. The well-known entertainer George Burns was among those in attendance. He happened to catch her while changing the channels, even though he had no intention of watching. Later on, he offered her a position in Las Vegas, which increased her notoriety much further. By Birdie made Ann-Margret a cinematic star in 1963. She wasn't initially intended to portray Kim McAfee. The role was intended for a younger, less daring person. After several actresses declined, George Sidney, the director, recommended Ann-Margret. This decision did not sit well with everyone. A few of her co-stars were concerned that she would steal the show. Her opening song was only meant to be a brief one when filming started, but the director was so impressed with her performance that he extended it to 3 minutes. Although it took 2 days to film and cost a lot of money, this choice was worthwhile. People were taken aback by her audacious and flirtatious performance of "How Lovely to Be a Woman" in another scene in the film. The director preserved it even though other people felt it should be cut. She became famous as a result of these incidents. The media started referring to her as the female Elvis at this point. A columnist who witnessed her perform live in Las Vegas and remarked on her captivating stage presence gave her the nickname. The resemblance to Elvis Presley was striking. They both had modest origins. Both had breakthroughs in 1956 and had a passion for fast automobiles and music. When Ann-Margret starred in Viva Las Vegas in 1964, the bond grew stronger. People were talking about their amazing on-screen connection all the time. At the peak of their popularity, she was 22 and Elvis was 28. George Sidney, the director, recognized the uniqueness of their relationship and gave Ann-Margret the same amount of screen time as Elvis. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, was displeased because he wanted Elvis to receive all the limelight. It wasn't always easy behind the scenes. Elvis's team was upset that the filmmaker offered Ann-Margret greater shots and more close-ups. Even some of their songs were taken out of the movie by Colonel Parker. Despite these issues, their dancing sequences, come on, everyone, were so passionate and full of energy that they will never be forgotten. Viva Las Vegas, the film's theme song, went on to become one of Elvis Presley's most well-known songs. Despite the fact that it wasn't a huge hit when it was initially released. Their on-screen romance developed into a relationship in real life. While filming in 1963, they fell in love, but their relationship didn't last. Because he had committed to marrying his sweetheart, Priscilla Bolu, Elvis called it quits in 1964. Even Priscilla acknowledged feeling offended and envious at the time, and Ann-Margret later acknowledged that they had a close bond. However, Ann-Margret remained in Elvis's memory. He continued to send her guitar-shaped flowers whenever she played in Las Vegas, even after they split up. To demonstrate how much she still meant to him, he continued this custom until the day before his death in 1977. Professional issues were brought on by the affair. Colonel Parker made sure they didn't work together again since he didn't want them to. However, Ann-Margret's career kept expanding. People thought that spending time with Elvis had given her the courage to do new things. Ann-Margret wanted to demonstrate that she was more than simply a gorgeous face after Viva Las Vegas. She portrayed a shrewd and alluring woman named Melba in the 1965 film The Cincinnati Kid. She collaborated with well-known actors like Steve McQueen, and her performance demonstrated that she could manage important parts. She then performed in the lighthearted comedy The Swinger in 1966. She portrayed herself as a wild party girl in this film in order to promote her book. In one well-known incident, she painted on a canvas with her body while covered in paint. It attracted everyone's attention and was audacious. Despite some critics focusing more on her appearance than her acting, the film was a success. However, it demonstrated her versatility and established her as a 1960s fashion trailblazer. With her performance in Carnal Knowledge in 1971, Ann-Margret rose to prominence as an actor. She portrayed Bobby, a lady in a difficult relationship who faces significant challenges. She was nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress because of how effective her acting was. She had always been viewed as a glamorous performer, so this was a significant shift for her. However, she displayed unfiltered emotions in this film. One scene is particularly noteworthy. Following a nasty dispute with Jack Nicholson's character, her character attempts suicide. Later, Ann-Margret claimed that she drew on her personal experiences with alcohol and despair to give her performance a genuine feel. Her acting's honesty astounded and touched audiences. For the role, she took significant chances. Despite being well known for her appearance, Ann-Margret put on 15 pounds. She also insisted on performing the feats herself. Like if she had fallen down a set of steps, leaving her injured and battered. She even appeared topless in one scene, which at the time sparked controversy. But history was made by this audacious decision. It made it possible for films to depict relationships and sexuality in a way that had never been done before. She starred in the 1975 film Tommy, which was adapted from The Who's rock opera. She was the Acid Queen. Additionally, one scenario stood out in particular. She rolled around in baked beans, chocolate, and champagne. Days were spent filming this chaotic, frenzied occasion. She was bruised, yet she was nominated for a second Oscar for it. She continued to release music and give live performances at the same time. She even performed with Luciano Pavarotti, a well-known opera artist. Her presentations were packed of energy and daring stunts, such as riding a motorcycle into the stage, demonstrating her bold nature. Ann-Margret's personal life included her 1967 marriage to actor Roger Smith. Their wedding, which took place in a smoky Las Vegas hotel, was straightforward and unique. People believe she may be pregnant because she sobbed during the entire ceremony, but she wasn't. For their marriage, Roger made a significant sacrifice. In order to handle her, he gave up his acting profession. He assisted her with debt repayment and looked for better positions, such as those in carnal knowledge. Even in difficult times, their partnership remained strong. On June 15, 1967, at the Riviera Hotel, Ann-Margret made her first significant appearance in Las Vegas at the age of just 26. For her, this was a significant moment. She was aware that her performance had the potential to either advance her career or damage her reputation. Ann-Margret and Her Las Vegas Review was the name of the program. It was a 90-minute presentation that showcased her talents as a singer, dancer, and entertainer. The strain was increased by the attendance of well-known celebrities like Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, and Frank Sinatra. Sliding down a 20-foot pole to make a dramatic entrance became Ann-Margret's defining move. There was also a delightful surprise in the evening. Ann-Margret discovered a huge floral arrangement in the shape of a guitar backstage. It came from her old co-star and personal friend, Elvis Presley. "Good luck on your opening night," he wrote in a note. "In spirit, I will be present." This became into a custom. For every opportunity she had in Vegas, Elvis sent roses. Her debut performance was a huge success, earning almost $400,000 in a single week, setting a record for the Riviera. A powerful combination of sex appeal and talent. Her illustrious career in Vegas was just getting started. It took Ann-Margret a while to get to the position of Queen of Vegas. Her crowds grew along with her performances throughout the 1970s. With a weekly salary of $400,000 at the Las Vegas Hilton, she was the best-paid performer in Vegas by 1975. However, things did not go as planned. She suffered a terrible tragedy while performing at the Sahara Hotel in 1972. She injured her cheekbone, mouth, and arm after falling 22 feet from a platform. Doctors said she might never be able to perform again because of the severity of her injuries. However, Ann-Margret disproved them 10 weeks later. With her arm in a cast, she went back on the stage and gave a performance as if nothing could stop her. She received a 5-minute standing ovation from the audience because they loved her so much. Her followers adored her even more after this comeback. Her performances gained notoriety for being thrilling and unexpected. She displayed her passion for motorcycles by riding one onto the stage during one of her performances. In another, she sang and danced while performing on a massive rotating platform that was spinning faster and faster. In 1976, she even brought Raja, a Bengal tiger, to the stage, enhancing her act's thrill and danger. However, Ann-Margret did not only remain on stage. She frequently sang to admirers in the audience and even invited some to join her on stage for a dance. Even though her shows were massive productions, this gave them a personal touch. Her bond with Elvis was one of the most heartwarming aspects of her Vegas journey. Every time she had a significant opening, he sent flowers to show his support. On August 15, the final bouquet arrived. The day before his death, 1977. Because the flowers meant so much to Ann-Margret, she preserved them for years. They had a unique bond and consistently encouraged one another's professional endeavors. When Ann-Margret performed at Lake Tahoe in 1972, her life took an unexpected turn. At the height of her career, she was 31 years old. She planned to descend from a 22-foot platform onto the stage as part of her performance. However, something went wrong. She fell all the way to the stage as the platform became unsteady. It was a horrible fall. Her jawbone and cheekbones were broken by the forceful blow to her face. Her knee was severely wounded, leaving a deep, untidy wound, and her left arm was also fractured. After being taken to the hospital, Ann-Margret spent 3 days in a coma. She woke up with a really swollen face. That she had changed. Her face had numerous fractures or broken bones. Physicians questioned whether she would live or even perform again. She needed challenging facial surgery to treat her injuries. She could only eat liquids because her jaw was wired shut. The healing process was painful and slow. She was unable to work or do much else for 10 weeks as she concentrated on getting better. Ann-Margret, however, wasn't prepared to give up. She startled everyone by taking the stage again just 10 weeks after the accident. Her recuperation was remarkable. She had persevered through the discomfort to restore her strength after the successful surgery. Her mental and physical strength were demonstrated by her comeback. It turned into one of her career's most impactful moments. She gained new respect for life as a result of the admiration she received for her bravery. Things didn't get any easier after this. Her father passed away from cancer at about the same time. She turned to alcohol as a coping mechanism because of the shock of her tragedy and her grief. Drinking was an escape, but it soon turned into a problem. Her personal and professional lives began to suffer as she fell into a deep despair. She concealed her issues with drinking from the public for many years. She ultimately made the decision to seek help in 1980. She worked hard to get sober, and later admitted, "You never really overcome it, but I dealt with it, and I'm always aware of it." Throughout all of this, Ann-Margret had someone who never left her side, her husband, Roger Smith. When she had her accident in 1972, Smith did everything to get to her. When no commercial flight was available, he took a plane himself to be by her side. He pushed doctors to try a new treatment, which helped reduce her facial scarring. During her battle with alcohol and depression, he stayed by her, encouraging her to recover. He wasn't just her husband. He became her manager, friend, and strongest supporter. Years later, the roles changed when Roger became ill. He was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis, a condition that made it hard for him to move. Ann-Margret became his caregiver, taking care of him with the same devotion he had shown her. She said this experience changed her, helping her grow stronger and more independent. Their marriage lasted 50 years, full of love and support, until Roger passed away in 2017. Ann-Margret's career changed completely when she starred in the rock opera Tommy in 1975. She played Nora Walker, a mother struggling with her son's strange life. This was not like anything she had done before. The role pushed her to her limits. And she gave everything she had. One scene, in particular, stood out. Nora breaks down emotionally in a bright white room. Suddenly, baked beans, chocolate, and soap suds pour all over her. Ann-Margret had to move around in the mess for 3 full minutes. It was not just uncomfortable, but dangerous. During the shoot, she accidentally cut her hand on a broken TV screen and needed 27 stitches. Filming stopped for a few days. But she came back and finished the scene. She also spent weeks practicing her singing for the movie, and her song, "Smash the Mirror," became a favorite. When Tommy premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, people were amazed. Critics, who had once thought of Ann-Margret as just a pretty face, now praised her talent. One reviewer even said her performance was surprising and spectacular. Because of this movie, she was nominated for her second Oscar. She didn't win. But she did win a Golden Globe, and her acceptance speech became famous for being long and heartfelt. By this point, it was clear Ann-Margret was no longer just a sex kitten from the 1960s. She had become a serious actress. After Tommy, Ann-Margret chose her next roles carefully. In 1978, she acted alongside Anthony Hopkins in a thriller called Magic. The story was dark and intense. And her performance earned her even more respect. In the 1980s, she started acting in TV movies, where she took on very emotional and challenging roles. One of her most moving performances was in Who Will Love My Children, where she played a dying mother trying to find homes for her 10 kids. She won awards for this role, and it showed how deeply she could connect with an audience. She also starred as Blanche DuBois in A Streetcar Named Desire. Another big moment in her career. In the 1990s, she switched between dramatic and lighthearted roles. She acted in Our Sons, a TV movie about mothers dealing with their sons' relationships during the AIDS crisis, which was very ahead of its time. She then became a fan favorite in Grumpy Old Men and its sequel. Even in her 50s, she charmed audiences with her energy and humor. These movies proved that age didn't slow her down. Ann-Margret never let herself be defined by one thing. In 1992, she posed for Playboy at 51 years old, showing she still had confidence and glamour. But she was also taking on serious roles. In The Last Producer, 1999, she played an aging actress dealing with her fading career and personal struggles. This role was raw and emotional, and people admired her courage for taking it on. Even in her 60s, Ann-Margret kept surprising everyone. In The Breakup, 2006, she played Jennifer Aniston's mother. And though her role was small, she made it unforgettable. Over her career, she acted in more than 50 movies and won many awards, including 5 Golden Globes and an Emmy. When Ann-Margret performed for American troops during the Vietnam War, it became one of the most unforgettable experiences of her life. In 1966, over 3,000 soldiers in Vietnam signed a petition asking her to come and perform. This deeply moved her, and she quickly decided to go. In just 3 months, she put together a small team, including 3 bandmates, Johnny Rivers, Mickey Jones, and Chuck Day, and began a 15-day USO tour. Her first tour in 1966 was small and tough. It started at USO Saigon, where 400 soldiers squeezed into a room meant for 200. The air was hot and heavy, but they were eager to see her. One special moment happened when she flew to the USS Yorktown aircraft carrier. From the helicopter, she saw sailors standing in formation on the deck, spelling out, "Hi, Annie." She loved that memory so much that a photo of it still hangs in her home. 2 years later, in 1968, she went back to Vietnam with Bob Hope's USO Christmas show. This tour was much bigger, with 80 entertainers and crew, including her husband. The performances drew massive crowds. In Saigon alone, more than 20,000 troops came to see the show. It was a difficult time for the soldiers, as it happened right after the Tet Offensive, one of the war's toughest battles. Her visit meant a lot to the troops who were worn out from the fighting. The tours were not glamorous at all. They were dangerous. In 1966, she performed twice a day in the Iron Triangle, a very unsafe area where gunfire could be heard nearby. The scariest moment came on a flight to Phu Bai. Her helicopter came under enemy fire. The soldiers on board immediately protected her, shielding her from the bullets. Looking back, she said, she didn't feel scared because the troops made her feel safe. She called them my guys. These experiences left a deep impression on Ann-Margret. She felt a strong connection to the veterans she entertained. For years, she received notes and photos from soldiers who had seen her perform. Many wrote to thank her for being there during such a hard time. She kept these notes and cherished them. She said performing for the troops wasn't about politics. It was about supporting the men and women who were serving. The tours also changed how people saw her. She was already a famous actress and singer, but putting herself in danger for the troops earned her respect far beyond Hollywood. People saw her as someone brave and caring, not just a glamorous star. On January 22, 1975, Ann-Margret appeared on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. She was 33 years old and one of the biggest stars of the time. She had just finished working on the rock opera Tommy, which would later earn her an Oscar nomination. She was also there to promote her TV special, Ann-Margret Olsen, which was airing the next night. After a quick chat with Johnny Carson, she went on stage to sing, "I've Got the Music in Me." As the music started, she stood still with her head down. Then she slowly looked up at the camera with a spark in her eyes. The moment the beat hit, she came alive. Her voice was powerful, and she sang with so much energy it gave everyone chills. She danced across the stage like the music was a part of her. At one point, she dropped into a split and kept singing without missing a note. The audience couldn't believe it. The band played perfectly, matching her energy. The song was different from the original. Ann-Margret and her team had added new styles to it, like rock and soul, and even a touch of her Swedish roots. It sounded fresh and unique, and it showed how talented she was as a performer. When the song ended, the audience exploded into applause. They clapped and cheered for a full 47 seconds, longer than any other performance on The Tonight Show at that time. Some people stood up to applaud, which was rare for the show. Johnny Carson looked amazed. He even stood up to shake her hand and said, "I've never seen anything like that." The audience loved it. Johnny was so impressed that he asked her to stay longer and talk about her performance. She laughed and said, "When you've got the music in you, it just has to come out." The audience laughed with her. It became a phrase people remembered her by for years. After the show, the phone lines at NBC lit up. Viewers from all over the country called to say how much they loved her performance. So many people called that the system stopped working for a few minutes. That had never happened before on The Tonight Show. The performance changed her career. The next night, her TV special had over 37 million viewers, making it the most watched variety show of the year. She got new movie offers and signed a big contract for a Las Vegas show. People now saw her not just as an actress, but also as an incredible singer and dancer. Even Pete Townsend of The Who noticed her performance, which helped her land her famous role in the movie Tommy. Her sparkling jumpsuit became a fashion trend, and her hairstyle was copied by women everywhere. The performance also changed how late-night shows handled music. They started putting more effort into staging and choreography to make performances bigger and better. Even today, her performance is remembered as one of the best ever on television. People still watch it online, amazed at her talent and energy. It was more than just a show, it was a moment that defined her as a true superstar.